All right, hello. Thank you very much for joining the From Broken Pieces to Powerful Purpose Telesummit. I'd like to welcome Anna Melikian today. Hi, Anna.
Hello, a pleasure to be here.
All right, I'm so glad. The fantastic thing is that we're on either sides of the planet almost, and so it's great. I love this technology. So, Anna, can you just tell us a bit about yourself?
My name is, like you said, is Anna Melikian, but I was born Anna Almeida because originally I'm from Portugal, so not very far away from, also from the European country, and now living in Phoenix, Arizona. And what I'm doing now, my specialty is as a business coach, I help other coaches how to enroll more clients. And it's been a very interesting journey because I didn't start as a business coach. I started as a psychologist, and it's been a really interesting journey so far.
Yeah, and so how did you? So one of the things that I'd like people to sort of get out of these conversations is how you go from doing one thing to a completely different thing, or maybe not completely different in your case, but how do you make that transition, and what was it that was going on for you during that transition period?
And I think that is something very typical if you speak with coaches in general, that coaching very rarely, nowadays it starts to be, but until a certain point, was very, very rare that you find a coach that the coaching was not like that second, third, or fourth career for them. There is a story behind most coaches. Why do we become coaches? And in my case, was something. So I started in so when I did apply to college in Europe, we have to decide a major from the beginning, like it's not like here in the United States, but in most countries in Europe. Mm-hmm. And I decided psychology. And clinical psychology was my passion. So I did my degree. I started in Portugal, then I went to England. I finished it in England. Clinical psychology. I did a master in clinical psychology, and then I was starting my doctoral program, and I got a job in a private university in Portugal. So I was doing what I loved, that was teaching. And in a psychology degree, I was having my private clients a couple of afternoons per week. So professionally was perfect, but my personal life was not so perfect. I was not having my second and my half, my soulmate, and I had that desire of sharing my life with somebody, and I could not find the right person. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So externally, it looked like everything was perfect, but internally, you felt like things were not so perfect.
And internally, part of it was perfect. It's one of the things that I like in coaching, in life coaching, that they have this concept of the wheel of life, where we have like a circle, and then we divide it in different, let's put different slices, depending of, and we can, one can be professional life, another one can be family, another one can be friends, social activities, location where you live. So you can divide this in many different ways. And the professional life was almost, how do you say, was really going very well. And I was internally and externally very satisfied with my professional life. Yes. My family of origin and friends also very good and everything there. But there was that part of having somebody to starting a family myself. I was not finding the right person.
Yeah.
So, and in that point was externally and internally, because my friends knew it was not something that I hid. It was like, I like the image of the wheel of life, because if you, for instance, imagine this wheel, and then in each a slice of that pie, you can think about in a scale. You can like put circles and circles and circles from 1 to 10. One being you are not totally, you are really unsatisfied with it, and 10 is you are living it in as much as you can, that area of your life. Professionally, probably I was in an 8 professionally.
Oh, yeah.
And in terms of my that desire of having a family, I was like in a 3. Okay, I know how that there was time. I was not desperate, but I felt that I didn't find yet the right person to start a family with and to share my life with. So there was like this imbalance. Imagine if you are riding a bike with a wheel that is so and not left. You are. It's a bumpy ride. Yeah. I'm for people like, wow, I'm in my chair in my office is that big exercise ball, so I really can bounce on it. Yes, that's good. People that are wondering how she's bouncing over there is because I'm sitting in an exercise ball. I like to is my favorite chair because I can just get up and just feel more active this way. So I was feeling that my life was like, it was not so much the dichotomy, the contradiction of living for the outside world was okay and internally was not okay. It was different areas in my life that I was not living in a full way. Mm-hmm. But professionally, like I will say, everything going very well. And one of the things that I was doing was traveling, that I also love. Going to conference, present papers in international places. And one of the places that I visit was Phoenix, Arizona, for a conference. And I was presenting a workshop at that time in 2001 with my supervisor of my PhD at the time, Dr. Peter Hawkins. And it was really a nice experience to come here to the United States and do this presentation in a professional meeting. And then the hotel where I was staying, I crossed paths with a person that we start to communicate by email. And 1 year later, we decided that there was something very meaningful there, enough for me to make a decision, or one of us had to move. And I decided to move to the United States. So again, in that point, I was feeling direction in my personal life, but implied this transition of Europe to the United States. And I said, okay, I will do it. Then I thought that arriving in the United States, because I was almost ending my PhD, the writing part of my PhD, I said, okay, I will focus on that. I will finish my PhD. I will defend it. I was doing in English university. Mm-hmm. And after that, I will ask my equivalence of my diplomas. And I will keep doing what I love. That was what I was doing there. That was teaching in a college and having some private clients of psychotherapy. So when I finished the PhD, I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. We got married. Was really a magical time. I took some time off, and then I finished the PhD. I got that paper, and I was okay. Now I want to start working in the thing that I love to do. And then I start to realize that because it's so different, the licensing of a psychologist here in the United States than in Europe. And the way that the licensing work, if I want a license as a psychologist, I will have to be redoing my PhD almost, because it has to be by an approved American Psychology Association kind of program, and mine was approved by the BPS, but not for the APA. The British Psychology Society. So it was all these things going on. And if somebody did a PhD, they know that even as that love learning is lots of work, and when you have it done, the thought of doing another one immediately afterwards is like, okay, I need a break. Yeah. It's like, I just ran a marathon. I need to rest a little.
That's right. You would run 2 back-to-back marathons.
I'll just say, it was a little bit. So I said, no, I know, this is too much. And it was in that point that it's like a door is slammed. is close in your face. It's really, I was not expecting that. I thought that, I was not saying that was going to be easy, but I was not expect that I was arriving to a dead end in the sense, okay, this is really, you have to redo a PhD. And after that, I still had to, because in Arizona State, it's not enough to have a PhD, you have to do a postdoc. So it was a big mountain of things, and I make me really see, is really this the mountain that I want to climb?
Yeah.
Is this really, or why do you love the work that you are doing? And
you've taken a lot of risks along the way. So moving from Europe to the US was a huge risk, and then being faced with all of these new qualification requirements.
Yeah, and made me think about, okay, what really I want to do with my life, because now my personal life was up there, yeah. And then I was going. Suddenly, my professional life, I was not satisfied with what I was doing, and I was, God,
your bike actually went reverse.
Yeah, I'd say this is not fair. And that made me think, how to say, because then it's that situation that I think happens so often, that I had to invest a lot of time and my resources and money and everything in my professional career as a psychologist and as a clinical psychologist. So my identity was a lot. I had done publications. I was already had a certain name growing in a certain specialty in psychotherapy. Wow. So also this, I had lots of things invested there. And that is where lives really is a great eye open for us, because make us, when that door slams in your face, you really have to ask, okay, do you want this fight or not? And if you want this fight, why do you want it? And
how do people know the difference between if they want or they don't want? What would you say about that? Like, how did you know?
For me,
because some people would just take that slam door as a, something very devastating, or, a reason for them to go into hiding, or, there's a number of things that could happen. So
or get mad, or be, for me, I always have the attitude, when a door closes, there will be a window somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm always like, I'm that kind of person that likes that I train myself to see the silver lining in things, and to look and for me, I think we learn a lot by falling. That is part of life. It's not the thing is that how we come back up.
So, is there such a thing as failure for you? Probably.
Yeah, for me, I see failure as an opportunity to grow.
Right.
And I always, and that also, how do you say, I was a kid when I was young. I suffer from dyslexia. So in school, I was very clever in certain things. In math was very easy for me, but for instance, I remember that I had lots of problems with spelling. In Portuguese, I really was very bad speller, and even in English, I am a bad speller. But you have a
PhD. I mean, that's extraordinary. It's extraordinary.
Yeah. And that made me, in the beginning, because how they say it was, you are not supposed to do so many spelling mistakes, and made me realize that, okay, I have to, the things that I'm good at, I have to work with that and go with that. And they're the things I really can be more difficult, but I can do it. So I always had that thing of, I always love to learn. I think that is one of my best strengths, the love that I have for learning and for the learning process in itself. But things were a little bit of a struggle for me in the beginning. So I think from very young age, I realized that things were not given to me, but I have to fight for them. And if something was difficult, something was a failure, was just, again, an opportunity for learning.
Right.
And yes, I had to, sometimes I felt it's not fair. I have to struggle more than other people for doing this. I have to put more work. But in the end of the day, I also had the satisfaction. I did it.
Right.
So that is something, and that is the thing. When the door closes, I already had developed a survival instinct that, okay, let me look around to see where there is some light, that maybe there is a window, because maybe it's going to be more difficult to climb the window that just go by the open door, but it's possible.
Yeah, and I love the sort of visual that I just got there. It's like stop and look at that door and look around you, and not just focus on the closed door, but start looking around to see if there are other openings.
Options, other possibilities. And the thing here is that often the doors and the windows are inside ourselves.
Yes. And we all, yes. And people are often looking physically, externally. But the solutions and ideas and resolutions are inside. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. And this is it's interesting that one of the things that, and now I'm going again in the future, because when I did my PhD, positive psychology was really in the beginning. So nobody still in Europe was speaking about positive psychology. Then 10 years later became a big thing, and I started to study more in positive psychology. And a very interesting thing that we know is that when somebody is in a negative mindset, in a negative their emotions predominant are negative, like fear, like anxiety, like stress. There are in very interesting studies that they see how our eyes move. And what we know is that when somebody is in that negative stress state, we really see as a funnel. We don't see so far away, we see in funnel in front of us.
Yeah.
Like if you think about in a situation that the door is slamming in your face and you are stressed and you are feeling the negative emotions, you only can see straight and you see, oh my gosh, the door closed.
Yeah, like that's the only thing that you can think about. And actually I had a situation recently where I scraped the side of the car, and I was like, that's, and all I could think about is that. And I was like, oh, just stop thinking about just that, because I mean, it's just, the side of a car, and it can be fixed, and it's not a big deal, and nobody's died. Like there's no real damage, but you're right. That's all we think about.
We have to do that. It's that situation that I think the more common situation is like we lost the car keys, or we lost the paper that we are looking for, and we cannot find it. We know that we left it in that table, but it's not there. And then somebody else passed by us. What are you looking for? Oh, the car keys. I know that I left there. They are here. And the car in front of us. And I was not seeing, because we were seeing as a funnel, that the person is more relaxed. He can see better. Yeah. So the thing is that become aware that, recognize the awareness. What the process is become aware, okay, I feel negativity, because the problem is not the negativity in itself. The problem is not, we're always going to feel situations that we are stressed. We're always going to feel situations that we have negative emotions, and that in itself is not the problem. For instance, if we are parking a car and somebody comes in front of us and steals our parking space, it's natural that we feel, this is not fair. The problem is when the image that I give to this is like, and has to do with our how we are wired in terms of our nervous system. We have part of our nervous system, mainly the autonomic, the things that usually happen in a more automatical way in our bodies. One is the sympathetic part of our nervous system is like what helps us to be in that, for instance, fight state. If we see something that is not fair, or if we go in terms of the evolution, or our own evolution, if we saw a danger like the lion, we have to run. We have to fight, or we have to run off from it. So we need things that activate us, and quick. There is a trigger, an activation, and we have to be ready for it. Yeah. So it's like putting our foot in the accelerator in a car. So we have an accelerator and the brake, and that acceleration that we make for our body to be ready for action. And it's important, even if we cross a road and there is a car coming, so we are crossing the road, a car is coming, it's very important that we have a system that is activated very quickly, that allows us to jump back and to save our lives. it's okay, it saved a life of our ancestors and still can save our lives today in many situations. The thing is that we have this other system, the parasympathetic, that is like the braking system, the calming system, the one that allows us to recoup from the acceleration. But if we have, for instance, that situation, we are crossing the road, a car is coming, we jump, we feel all that adrenaline in our body, and then we don't use our braking system and we spend all day in that, oh my gosh, I almost was killed by that car. That is what becomes the problem. So my point is that the negative emotions per se are good because they can save us life. It's not the problem having negative emotions. The problem is staying stuck in the negative emotions. Is staying with that feet stuck down in the accelerator, going everywhere fast, without learning how to apply the brakes and to balance that. Because we need to accelerate in certain circumstances and we need to brake in others. So,
yeah. So some people, because and it's about people who have learned to not be a certain way. So don't be angry, or don't be upset, or don't be whatever. Like, essentially, a lot of people have grown up being or learning. Sometimes it's not even conscious; it's sort of subconscious. It's you can only show up a certain way in life. So just be nice and polite and kind. And as a child, people are often taught, so don't cry, or don't whatever, don't feel your emotions. So how would you say, what tools would you be able to suggest, or what method could you recommend for people who have had that kind of upbringing or learning? How can they deconstruct that? Because I'm guessing those people kind of stay in the negativity, or they take the negativity and they just like store it in their
system, and
I guess.
yes. Sometimes, yes, but I deny that they exist, and that is not good either. We have to be able to deal with positive and negative emotions. It's like if we only could paint black and white, or we only have, so you only have white to paint, or you only have black to paint, or even if you only have black and white to paint, and there are all these colors of the rainbow that we could paint with. So I think the big problem from one side or the other is like we are limiting our possibilities.
Yes.
Is that something that even with the positive psychology that I think is being a great movement within psychology in general, sometimes I criticize it a little because it puts everything pink. No, life is not everything pink.
Yeah.
I like always say, even the roses have spines, and and it's part of their beauty. So, or sometimes to appreciate the beauty, we have to be willing to deal with the negative, the things that are not so good. I'd say, for instance, to do my PhD, that was a great achievement that I did. Was not always easy. Was not always, yeah, I'm doing this work. No, sometimes, oh my gosh, I still have to do this. I still have to write that. But we endure, we go, and then we have that satisfaction of something.
Yeah.
And that capacity, I think my main point is that we should train ourselves to expand our possibilities. And in situations where we are overwhelmed with negativity, we really have to become aware, this is happening, I fall, or the door slapped my face, ouchie, and give yourself some time to feel the ouchie. So give yourself a break. But then, by also be able to bring your past experience, to bring that reflection, to bring that awareness, to ask for help. In many cases, you have to ask for help. You are so so overwhelmed with the situation that you cannot do it alone, and it's totally fine to ask for help.
Yeah, and that's the other thing people have struggled with. But yes. Go on.
And then start to calm the system, to put that brakes in, because that part is necessary. Really trust, because you are not seeing the solution, and there is no warranty that there is a solution or there is a window there. But from experience, I know from experience that first I have to relax. Like the keys, I lost the keys. but I know that I have to give a break. I have to relax a moment and then look again.
Yes.
And that is where have some kind of tools like knowing how to control our breathing, for instance, can be a very simple and magical thing to do. Because when we are in anxiety, when we are in negativity, our muscles are tense, our breathing is very short and superficial. And just by deepening the breath, we relax our body and makes a big difference. And the people love doing meditation, anything that works for you. There are many ways of doing this. And just when you relax and then you are able to look around and see much wider and see things, okay, there is some light coming from there. Now let me go to explore. And coming back to the situation that I was when I moved to the United States, okay, there is this door that was closed in my face. So what you were doing before, you cannot have a license of psychology easily here. So it's going to be a big struggle in front of you. So you have to, maybe if you don't want to go in this, climbing all this or this mountain, you cannot do what you are doing there and you love in the past. So what can you do now? For me was also, let me look inside and let me see why I love that, if deserves to fight for it or not. And was in that process that I found life coaching. I started to read about that is people finding their purpose, why they do what they do, and that is what I was trying to find in myself. Why is this important? Really dive inside yourself and let's see, why is this the only way? By being a psychotherapist is the only way of living your purpose. You're living the only way of doing this. And what I found out that what I love, or I managed to articulate in a very clear way, that what I love about what I was doing before was that I was helping people. And I like to ask, like if you imagine a scale, 0 being the middle and now -10 in, and I was helping people with a mental illness like a depression, like anxiety, that are in the minus side of the scale, to go to 0, a functional life. But I love the process of, and when they are with a depression, with anxiety, with a phobia, and they arrive to that functional way of living at 0, their new opportunities are opening to them. It's really new things. They feel the freedom to decide things and to do things. And it's that process of elevating people to expand their possibilities that I'm totally passionate about. So I saw the life coaching as taking people from the 0 of the scale, from a functional life, to the +10 of the scale.
Yeah. And would you say that most people go through that scale, well, maybe in less extreme sort of measures, but would you say that most people throughout their lives, they go from sort of maybe a bit, they dip their toes in the minus and then they go to the 0 and then they go, so what do you think about that? If
let's play with this image like a -1 or -2, I think we are calling mental illness to too many things. How do you say we are, but so we will always have our we dip, I like the image, we dip our feet in a little bit in the negative part of the scale, and it's nothing, and most people are able to come back to a functional life. Some people go in a negative way that they really need help of a psychologist or a psychotherapist, and sometimes even medication is necessary to help them to go to the functional area of their lives. But I think there is this big potential from the 0. If you have a functional life, if you are like in the -1 or -2 to 0 to the +1, +2, why not they are in psychology, until very recently we didn't have explore, and that is why positive psychology is so important. We had loads of experience and loads of amazing brains and people trying to focus on the negative side of the scale, the mental illness. But not so many people and not so much energy spent in what can we do with people that have okay life to really live their potential.
Mm.
Yes, in the 70s, there was a movement there. We can say this existential psychology, Carl Rogers with humanistic psychology, etc. already were exploring that, but was only in the 20th century with positive psychology that it becomes like a more predominant thing in psychology. And life coaching was another approach to do that. That also learn from the psychology, but also learn from other sciences and other sources, and was a very efficient way of helping people go up in that positive side of the scale. And again, is giving people more opportunities, expanding possibilities. And suddenly I realized that that was what I love to do, helping people expand their possibilities. And I could be in the negative side of the scale as a clinical psychologist, as a psychotherapist, or I could be doing in the positive side of the scale as a life coach. And I decided to become a life coach.
Yeah, I love it.
Transition and for me was a very natural thing, because I already had lots of training, personal development, because I was very involved in training myself, and then afterwards training other psychotherapists. I was very involved in psychotherapy training too, so I love the personal development. I already had some tools and some experience there. So was using that, what I knew already, and adding more tools and more learning. So learning something new, wow, great. So I look for training programs. I found one that was approved by the International Coach Federation to train me to become a life coach. And I become a life coach, and I become certified as a life coach. And I was starting to have clients and loving it. But then when I decide to have a home-based business that I could do most of the things to the internet and through the phone, and I want to be paid what I thought I deserved by my expertise and all the work that I have put and the investments that I had done in my training. Suddenly I realized that was not enough to be good in what you do to get clients. It's so many people out there that I see nowadays that are amazing. They really make a difference in people's lives, but where are the clients?
Yeah.
We are like the best kept secret. It's like that needle in the haystack. There are so many things, so many confusion, so many noise. How can we be seen? We know that we can make a difference. How can we attract ideal people to work with us? And I was in that situation. I was easier to get the clients, that were people that I knew, that were people that I could barter services. But if I was wanting to do a business out of this, I had to really get clients that were willing to invest in their personal development.
Yeah.
Help me to trust me, to help them in that journey. And how do that? Oh, you have to do marketing online. Oh, I hate marketing. Oh, you have to sell. You have a service that you have to sell. I didn't do psychology to become a salesperson. I didn't do life coaching to become a salesperson. So what the hell are you speaking about?
It's very interesting, because I think a lot of people, whether they're transitioning and trying to become a life coach, or even just within an organization, it's kind of like you're here and you want to go here. And then they say, well, you have to do this, 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 this. And people become overwhelmed, and they say, well, I'm not that. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. So what's your thought about how people, so what's sort of wrapped around that sort of emotions and thoughts, but also how do you overcome that?
Yeah, because in the beginning was lots of confusion, because I was used to work in an organization. I was working as a faculty in a university in Portugal. So my job was to prepare classes, prepare how to deliver certain content in a way that students could learn it. And I was very good at it. And then, yes, I had my entrepreneur thing that was a couple of afternoons per week that I had my private practice. But honestly, the marketing that I had to do was printing out business cards with the address where I had the office. And I had a waiting list, because people knew me because of the name that I had there, and this my specialty. people, how do you say, were referring. So was very, and I was just 2 afternoons per week, so I didn't have much time. So it was very easy to book solid there. But here, I was so many people with so many credentials in the United States. How could I differentiate myself? And I started to see that there were people that were doing it and having very successful business online. So I think that my background in academia and research, we see, okay, there is a problem. There are people that already solved that problem. So let's study what these people are doing. So that was my way of thinking. I say, again, the door slapping. Okay, you want to have an online business, but you don't have clients. How do you get that clients of life? Let's calm down a moment. Let's look around. Let's see, oh, there are other people over there that are doing this. So let me see what are they doing. So I started to do training about, and I was very reluctant. I was doing training about marketing. How could I marketing my service without, I will try to see, I will give this a chance, because if I want to be my own business, I have to learn how to be out there, how to promote myself. And in that search, in that research, I found the Book Yourself Solid system. And is this system developed by Michael Port in 2006 that he released the first book, the first edition of the book. Suddenly I found, because I already had read many other things and found many things, but this one was like, oh, whoa, yeah, this makes sense. Oh, I can do a self-promotion in a way that is in alignment with my values. Wow, I like that. I can work with people that I love to work and build my business to attract them. I like this. So, and then I start to apply it. I start to see things happening. I start to see clients, booking clients, and I'll start to speak with other people that were that I had met in this journey, that were in the same struggling there I was, and we start to do a book club around the Book Yourself Solid system. And then at that time, Michael Port started to do trainings, and I started to participate on those trainings. And then he opened a certification for people to become Book Yourself Solid certified coaches.
You did that.
And I did that.
Yeah, and what's
that is transition.
Yeah, and I love that, because what's incredible is oftentimes people rely on sort of their spouse or their neighbor or their parents or their family or their, sometimes even their colleagues or their boss, and they say, I don't really know what to do, and I'm kind of struggling, whether it's, again, within a traditional work context or as an entrepreneur. So I love the fact that you actually looked at people who were succeeding in that space, and that's who you went and spoke to. I heard a really funny story once about a woman who said, if you're buying a house, you're not going to go into a park and find a 3-year-old and say, hey, I found this house. It has a couple bedrooms and a kitchen and a living room. Do you think I should buy it? Like, would you take the advice of a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old? Probably not. So it's about really finding the appropriate people that have had the success and using them. But that's difficult for people to do sometimes.
And I think another thing comes from psychology. Another, there is Dr. Carol Dweck. She has this book called Mindset that I really recommend. It's a great reading. And she has this concept of the fixed mindset, and that is when if you believe that something that you are born with a certain characteristic, certain thing, and you cannot do anything about. It can be good or bad. I'm very clever. I'm very good at math. And you believe that is a fixed trait that you have. That makes, when something like that failure happen, I must be broken, something is wrong with me, or something is wrong with them. We don't see it as an opportunity for learning. And if we contrast a fixed mindset with a growth mindset, That is another way of seeing the things, that yes, we can have these tendencies, we can have these strengths, but there is so much more that we can learn, so much more that we can expand. Then when a failure happens, it's not the end of the world, of the end of the situation. It's like when their door slaps in your face, is really, okay, what can I learn? We are much more open to learn. Because we don't see that as a trait, but something that maybe we don't have the skills yet to do, but we can learn those skills in order to do it. And that is, I think many people are locked in their fixed mindset around, they know that they are good in what they do, but and I was there, marketing and sales, no, that is not for me. What can I learn? And then when you find out the system that you feel connected in terms of the values of the system, then suddenly, okay, it becomes a learning project and a fun project.
Yeah, and it comes back to what you'd said before. I mean, we always have to look inside, and absolutely. I mean, this is what I do with my clients. Is I help them to find their authentic voice and to live in that space and to be that authentic voice, regardless of what's, the story or the message going on in their heads. And it's like, okay, that's not real, right? It's kind of like.
and then there is this dialectic, this process that is looking inside, like you're saying, finding your own authenticity, your own voice, but then you cannot stay stuck inside, because some people sometimes also stay stuck inside.
Yes.
You have to be able to go outside and to express and to speak your voice for other people, a message in a way that other people can listen and that other people can resonate and help other people. So there is always, I think it's very easy for us to stay stuck in things and to limiting ourselves. And we have to realize that it's not black or white. It's black and white.
Yes.
It's black and white and all the other colors of the rainbow. So, and that way I think we have the tendency, because if we know that it's like that, we feel a little bit more safe, but we also are limiting our possibilities a lot.
Yeah, and I love that because, again, and it sort of comes back to what we'd said before, we learn as children often that you have to be a certain way. I mean, we're born as whole, complete individuals, and then we're like, sort of forced to behave certain ways, and sometimes we don't really understand and we just follow because we're told to do it. And then as adults, unless you can bring awareness to why do I actually behave that way, or why is that my reaction, and sort of in my experience, both personal and with my clients, is why do I have shame around that? Or, why am I blaming myself or somebody else about that? So it's about sort of acknowledging and accepting that and then moving forward, but in your most authentic way. So yeah, I love it. I love it.
Oh my, it's so much. This is, I love to speak about this subject because I think it helps us to see things from different perspectives.
The sound is just a little funny now for a second. I don't know if
I can try to do one thing and then you can add it. I'm going to unplug and plug the sound again. Sometimes that helps. Okay. One, two, three.
Perfect. All right. Good. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, is there anything is there a tip or a some advice that you can give to people on how they can get clear on how to do these things and really live the best life for themselves?
And I think it's what you said before, not look for advice look for advice or try to get inspiration and get help or get assistance or learn from people that have walked that walk.
Yeah.
And thank God there are many people out there that have fall down and that get up and struggle and make it happen. So whatever situation you are in, try to see what can you learn from other people's and from your own past history, because sometimes we have more resources than we think of.
Yes.
So don't lose hope. One of my big inspirations in this life is in terms of I never met him in person, of course, but he's somebody that I admire in a very it really inspires me, is Viktor Frankl.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So if people are not familiar with Viktor Frankl, they should go look for Man's Search for Meaning, one of his more classical books, and that speaks a little bit about he was a psychiatrist from Vienna, Austria, during the World War II. And being from Jewish background, he was in a concentration camp. And from everybody of this family at the time, he was the only one that survived.
Yeah.
He survived the concentration camp, and afterwards he went. But how amazing thing, because he was, how to say, cool. I cannot imagine worse circumstances in his life than he had. He was married at the time. His wife was pregnant. They go to a concentration camp. They are separate. They lose his wife, this child, the unborn child. The wife died there. His parents also died there. And he survives the horrors of that the concentration camp. He's free. He rebuilds his life, and he always had this positive attitude and believe that people in their essence are good.
Yeah, and what I absolutely loved, and I read that book years and years ago, what I absolutely loved is the fact that he said, if for the difference between those who sort of made it and those who didn't were those who believed they could make it, did. Those who didn't, or who believed they wouldn't make it, didn't.
Yeah, and the thing that he said, the meaning, even in the suffering,
yes.
You can try to find a meaning in the suffering.
Yes.
And it's in that search for the meaning that is really the reason that we live for. So, but there is positive attitude, this joy of life that he had was, for me, is an inspiration. And you always had this belief that we can choose. There is Steve Covey, that is an American writer that is a very famous, he already also passed away. He has a very famous book that is The 7 Habits of Very Effective People. It's one of his best sellers. And he also studied Viktor Frankl, and he spoke a lot about Viktor Frankl in his work. And one of the things that he said that once he learned from Viktor Frankl was this quote that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space, we have our freedom. Because, and I'm paraphrasing the quote here, but there is stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom to choose the response.
Mm-hmm.
So we always have the power of choosing. Okay, sometimes we don't have the power to decide what are the stimulus that happens in our lives, because sometimes life throws us some situations that we didn't ask for them in any way or form, and there was no negative or positive thinking. Things happen, and sometimes bad things happen to great people. It's nothing to do with you. So because there is also the tendency you ask for, no, you didn't ask for it. Bad things sometimes happen. Now, when those things happen, the only freedom that we have is decide what we do with that. Yes. Let that destroy our life, or let us learn that painful lesson, and do something with it. Make something out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I love it, and it's literally that, because one of the things, I mean, I have a young child, and one of the things that I think is really important for me to convey to him is that actually people don't make you angry, or they don't make you happy, they don't make you whatever. You choose. That's you've chosen to be angry, or you've chosen to be in love, or happy, or it's a choice. But culturally,
it's so difficult to explain. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I'm always struggling with that one. How do I explain? How do I teach her that? And I try to explain. It's like, if somebody gives you a present, you can decide to accept the present, say thank you, or you say no thank you. It's your decision. If somebody gives you a poison apple, it's not because somebody is giving you something, even if it looks beautiful. You should say no. So if somebody says something to you, doesn't mean that you have to accept that and say, no, you can say no thank you, that is yours, not mine.
That's right.
But takes time. I say we have to repeat this message over, because even ourselves sometimes they give us a poison apple and say, oh thank you, let me bite it. Oh, poison. That's right. And another image, and it's so important for kids to repeat this and this and this, so until one day it clicks. And this happened recently with my daughter. I like. Do you know the story of the two wolves? The two wolves. So it's the story, a very beautiful story, and there is in positive psychology, I think it's Barbara Fredrickson. And I hope that I'm not mixing reference here, that she does an adaptation of that story for positive psychology. And the story is about this. So you have to imagine like an Indian person, a wise old Indian, speaking with his grandson. And he's telling him the story of two wolves, that everybody inside themselves has two wolves.
Okay.
A dark wolf and the white wolf, and the one is a negative thinking, stressful, thinking about everything that is bad and is ugly and is that brings you negative emotions, and the other one is about light, about optimism, about joy, about fun, about so many positive emotions. And they are fighting with each other inside of every person, and it's really a very hard and strong struggle. So the grandson stopped this wise man, the grandfather, and asked him, so, and which wolf wins? And the grandfather turns to the grandson and says, the one you feed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so this was a story, okay, because the negative and the positive, the one you feed, and it's a story, so kids like story. But I told her these stories many times, and I don't like the wolves, so I changed. Okay, which animal do we want? So we changed it for bears. Okay, do we have a good bareback bear? And then I didn't like the white and black, because I think we have the tendency to put too much in the black, the negative, and the white, the positive. So I asked her her favorite color. So I told her the story many times until one day I told her the story, and we did bears.
Yes.
Because she said that bears will not frighten her as much as wolves.
Yes.
And then we had a pink bright bear, and a brown poopy bear. And they were fighting, and that she could be feeding the pink bright bear, and how could she be feeding and then you can with the kids you can see when something clicks in their mind. Yes. I like the pink bear. Yeah. I want to feed that. So we start now the tradition about maybe 3 months ago, that every night when she goes to bed, we have like a small diary that she writes something positive that happens during the day, like training herself to focus on the positive, because he's feeding the pink bear. And this diary, of course, is a girl, is a pink diary.
Yeah.
But it could be another color, whatever color is the favorite of the child.
Yeah.
So for me, and then she wants me to, she does a drawing and I do a small comment. And this takes us like 2 minutes, 5 minutes at night to do. But for me, it's like, but it's what I want to say is that we have, and the first time that I proposed something like this, it didn't work. Yeah. And then I tried maybe after 4 times, and I was just, okay, when you want to entertain them at night and just want them to relax a little for them to fall asleep, here I was again telling the same story. And that time you saw, click.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the pink bear. The pink bear was the okay. So let's feed the pink bear.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think that's true, because one of the things I ask, that I do myself, but I also ask my clients to do, is to write gratitude lists.
Yes,
and
it's the same. It's exactly that concept.
Yeah,
is like
feeding that pink bright bear, right? And
training to focus on the positive.
Yeah, and it's amazing because oftentimes, and what I say is, those days when you've had the hardest day and everything seems like it's not working, that is the day when you have to write your gratitude list. And that's usually when people say, no, I can't, and they like stay down. I'm like, no, that's when you have to write it. So that's when you have to feed the bright pink bear.
Totally. And how important is when we start in the good days to train that muscle, seeing that as a muscle that we can train. And let's start when it's easy.
Yeah.
To have it strong enough.
Yeah.
When things get harsh and tough, because we already have trained that the muscle becomes a little bit easy to activate it.
Yeah. And a lot of people say, but I wasn't taught this when I was a child, and I'm at a certain age, whatever age, they think.
Again, the fixed mindset, I cannot learn because I'm already have this. No, okay, it's going to be, yes, let's be honest, it's going to be a little bit more difficult probably.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah, that's right. And I always say it doesn't matter. Like there's multiple examples of people who sort of completely transformed their lives in their 60s, 70s, 80s. Like it, I've met people who are really stressed out about not sort of finding, discovering who they are in their 30s. I'm like, don't worry.
It takes time.
Yeah, it takes time, and everybody's journey is unique, and actually it should be. If your journey is exactly the same as somebody else's, then it's probably an indication that things are not quite as happy as they could be. Anyways, well, I think, I think this has been an absolutely amazing, insightful conversation. I really thank you for your time, Anna. It's been, great for me. I think we've received a whole bunch of really interesting insights, and yes, I thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. And I really, what you are doing with this telesummit is amazing, and giving people different experts, different opinions, and it's opening possibilities to them. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you, and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.